What would you do if I had to die? Like if that was like, if you figured out somehow that the key to saving all of humanity, was dependent on me dying as soon as possible from Sweden, how would you kill me?
Well, unfortunately, I don't know any Sicilians, and you're not in Philadelphia.
Oh, shit. Are you guys gangsters? Shut up! Owe me a Coke.
So, let's see. What would I do? I guess I would get on Craigslist, and I would tell someone to put up an ad. Well, okay, first I'd have to find a contract killer sort of thing, fish it out on Craigslist. It's not going to be be okay, but this is just we're I'm writing a movie script right now.
Yeah, we're spitballing.
So I would, try to find this contract killer. Silk Road doesn't exist anymore, right? Or maybe I'd get on Silk Road 5 or whatever it's on.
You would Google the dark web.
Right. I would Google the dark web. I would find a mid-level
assassin.
Yeah. I would instruct them to place an ad on Craigslist for, I guess I would say Crestline or Los Angeles in general. I think LA County, whatever. And put an ad up for a Geo Metro, and I would Google all of this. I would get on message boards and I would learn all of these super niche things to say and the things that fans of Geo Metros look for.
Okay.
And I would be okay, write this ad. Got to sell it today. First come, first serve.
I like it.
And I would draw you to the place where you're going to be killed, and then. It'd have to be somewhere I don't know, somewhere weird in Southern California. Temecula. It would be in Temecula.
Oh, see, there's a lot of stuff out in Temecula that I see, and it's hard to justify.
Okay, maybe sort of Inland Empire-ish.
Yeah.
Because I want to be sort of out there, and then he or she would kill you.
Yeah. I mean, it would definitely take more than one person, so it's definitely a they situation.
Okay, all right.
What? I'm simply saying that I'm too strong for one
mutant. I didn't say mutant.
No, one mere mortal. That's what I was saying. One mere mortal to kill me.
I'd say one mere mutant probably could kill you.
Well, it depends on what kind.
Bullshit.
Wolverine. Okay, it works. It's good.
Yeah. For those of you who are just tuning in, I spent way too many hours working on a soundboard that I'm probably not even going to use in this episode, but it's up and it's running, baby. My wife and I just concluded a complete watch through of Community.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's really good. They did it right. There are some weak moments, there are some weak plot lines here and there, but overall, for an American sitcom to go all the way to 6 seasons, and the 6th season basically being we're doing this because we said we were going to, and just take it in a completely different direction, or more or less. I don't know. I don't know if it's a really good show.
It's a great show. I mean, if we weren't doing Always Sunny, we'd be doing Community.
Yeah, I mean, if we continue doing this past however 100
I'm sorry, what? If we get 5 years into this or 7 years into this?
Yeah. Well, we're on episode 20 something?
Yeah, we're in the 3rd season and we've been doing it for a year or something, right?
Right. Anyways, Community is very funny, and props to everyone involved with that. And there is some crossover, I think, with some writers with Always Sunny.
Interesting. I mean,
Megan Gans is the one that I can think of off the top of my head.
I mean, there's got to be a lot of, in the film and TV industry, just within music, it has to be fairly incestuous.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it might be a little bit different with Always Sunny being the brainchild of a group of 3 guys, and they did almost all of it until
True.
Got bored.
But after they got bored, aren't there 10 seasons?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of It's Always Stockholm in Los Angeles. My name is Nate Harold, and I'm here with the one, the only, the bearded, the handsome Will Noon.
It's true. If Rico saw me in a country club, he might come up to me and ask me if I was gigoloing.
Rico rocks, for sure. Today we are talking about The Gang Gets Whacked, Part 1, which is Season 3, Episode 12. Written by Glenn Howerton, Scott Martyr, and Rob Russell. Directed by Matt Shackman.
Oh, Shaq. The Shaq is back?
Yeah, I believe this is the first episode this season that he has directed. I think this is the third director of
I was just very proud of myself that I said the Shaq is back.
The Shaq is back, baby. We do prep for this podcast, if you can believe it, but we don't do any of it together. And
right.
So Will was like, this morning for me, last night for you, was like, this is a two-parter. Like, are we going to do both of these? But thankfully, I had watched it that day, so I was like, there's way too much shit that happens in this episode. Like, we got to savor this. This is a really good one.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that, like, it's funny when I think of this episode and I start to think of, like, the gangsters and, like, in the gigolo aspect, I remember back, because I've seen this episode prior to today and yesterday. I've probably seen it a dozen times. Yeah. So I think of the storylines from Part 1 and Part 2, and now after watching it a few times recently, I'm more focused, but in my brain it kind of did make sense. Maybe we should tackle it as a two-parter, but I'm going with it. I'm going to see what happens.
Yeah, I just feel like it's just jam-packed. And there's bingo.
Hey, you want an exotic bird?
There's the mafioso.
I want you to go clean the bathrooms.
There's Rico.
You can make a killing here, bro.
There's just a lot of really good stuff in this. We start on a nice Philadelphia afternoon. It's 2:30 p.m. Dennis and Mac are trying to fix... There's something wrong with the electricity in the bar. You would think that a bar like that would have problems all the time, so it's really not surprising that there's something wrong with the electric
Yeah, they always...
system.
Every once in a while, they'll bring it up as like a plot point or moving things along as there's an issue with this. The AC goes out. There's always something going down.
So Mac and Dennis are kind of standing at the breaker box, and they're like debating on how you're supposed to not get electrocuted when you're doing something like this. Right. There's talk of there's rubber on the handle. Oh wait, I have rubber on my shoes. You need to be standing on rubber. And then Mac decides that he needs to be in the air.
Yeah, if you jump into the air and grab a live wire, you won't get electrocuted. But then if you land on the ground and you're still holding that wire, you'll be blown to bits.
And that he saw from Tango and Cash, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Kinda, that kind of ends with like Kurt Russell did it, so it's like that's
so it's fine. Yeah,
it's probably fine.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny because that really is a very like realistic scenario when you get if you and I were like trying to do something that we weren't familiar with, we'd kind of be like, well, I heard this once, and then someone else was like, well, but I saw on a video once that this happened. Like my uncle says this. And you get a bunch of these like sort of half-true things. Also, Dennis, I think he says that the rubber on the screwdriver handle will ground him.
Right.
Which is the opposite. It's true. Well, yeah, it's just like it will prevent him from being grounded, which is what he wants. But he's saying the opposite because he's just repeating incorrectly what he heard.
Right. The essence of this is that the bar without Frank's money specifically doesn't probably work. So they're trying to do this themselves. They're not immediately calling an electrician because I'm assuming, well, and we learn later, they have no money.
Yeah, and you can tell from the past 3 seasons of the bar being full approximately 3 or 4 times.
Frank enters, they're like, Frank, you got to pay for this. And he's like, no, I'm tired of bailing you guys out. Like, I'm tired of using my money to keep this bar running. Frank suggests Charlie should do it.
Right.
It doesn't really seem like Charlie work necessarily because
it's a little more technical, but I think because of the risk involved, it does fall under Charlie work.
Fair.
Yeah.
Frank's first fix after not being in the room until this point, he's like, yeah, give me a harness and I'll come in and work on it.
Yeah.
Oh, God, so good.
Which just proves Mac's point that, yeah, you just have to be elevated. You have to be in the air.
Yeah. Tango and Cash had a big influence on
both of them.
On DIY electricians. Charlie and Dee come in.
Check these bad boys out!
They fell off the back of a truck.
Nice grab.
And apparently they were supposed to be out buying flashlights.
Because they predicted, maybe they've had on and off problems with the electricity, but yeah.
Right.
So Dennis is really upset that they didn't get the flashlights, but they got speakers. Big ass.
They got speakers. Hello. Charlie plops it on the table, and the grill falls off, and there's a gigantic, I'm assuming that's a kilo
sure.
of white powder, which we can assume to be cocaine.
I'm going to look up the 2007 street price of cocaine and see if we could figure out how much it is.
Dennis is immediately like, dude, this is bad. Like, you got to put that back. Like, what if someone saw you? And then there's a very funny interaction where Charlie's like, no, nobody saw us, right? And Dee is backing him up, but like in a very unsteady, unsure way.
Right. They're like, yeah, no, probably no one saw us. It's fine.
And then after taking a break from this format, the last few episodes, the title of the episode works out in a joke where Charlie says,
Let's not worry or panic. There's a lot of drugs, but like, what's the worst that could happen?
So it's not the opposite of, but it's a similar punchline.
It's more the classic format of Always Sunny, where the title is part of the joke.
In 2007, cocaine prices had recently doubled in some cities because of tight supplies. Average price for a gram of cocaine on the street rose 24% from January to June, and this show was released in November. So by the time it was written, I'm going to say June would be reasonable.
Sure.
So it was $118 per gram.
Okay.
That's bonkers.
Yeah, that's pretty expensive.
I mean, obviously, that's $118,000.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be a quarter of a kilo, I think.
But that's street price.
Oh, so you think the 25K was wholesale? I don't know. I feel like if maybe. But when the gangsters show up and they say, "Give us back our drugs," or 25, do you think they would have asked for the wholesale price because that's what they were going to move it for?
I'm only saying that because the numbers are so different.
Okay.
I'm trying to make the argument from the writer's perspective.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. Also, to be honest, just from that, the impression that I get, those three mobster guys, they don't seem like they're doing like street dealing of cocaine. They're like chilling in lawn chairs, taking it easy. They're not out hustling. Maybe they have a network that we don't know about, but
they're probably import export.
Yeah. They're wholesalers.
They aren't the ones who put it on the ship or whatever. They're the ones who take it from there to the wholesaler themselves, and then the wholesaler takes it to the street dealers and something like that. I don't know. I've never been in the mafia. I don't know.
Did you ever read that book, Freakonomics?
No.
It was either Freakonomics or Super Crunchers. There was apparently like some economist somehow met someone in a cocaine or heroin like gang, and they started doing like somehow he got in with them and like comfortable with them, and they let him like check out the books, and he was able to do like a breakdown because this gang apparently like took really good notes, and he was like looking at the hourly wages of some of like the street sellers, like the retail side sellers, and he said they were making like crazy low money, and he's like, the risk reward is just out of control. It was just funny to see like an analytical breakdown of a drug ring like hierarchy network.
Yeah, I guess it's not surprising that it would be inefficient in some ways. There's no Stringer Bell there,
Is that a wire thing?
Yeah, he's like forward-thinking business side of their drug enterprise, whereas his partner Avon is like the street guy.
So is Stringer Bell like, does he create the Uber of cocaine dealing?
No, but they do like they streamline stuff, and he's in business school.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and so he's like, shifting, like we got to shift our money from this into real estate in Baltimore because that's a better way to store your money, and he's like bribing politicians and
nice.
Anyway,
moving on.
Still at the bar. Now the gang is set up around the drugs, the big possible kilo, maybe half kilo. We're not totally sure. And there's a discussion about like what to do with it. So first it's throw it away. Well, no, if you throw it away, a kid's going to find it.
Yeah. You don't want that.
Number 2, you should burn it. Well, if you burn it, then there's a whole fume situation.
Yeah, you might get high. Yeah.
Number 3, bury it.
Well, you got the same problem as number 1.
Back to the kids.
You know, because kids run around with shovels.
And then my personal favorite is call the police, and everyone's reaction to that suggestion.
Yeah.
What are we going to just solve society's drug problem? You know what I mean?
Is that on us? Is that on us
the
now?
community is still going down the toilet.
That turns into Dennis being like, well, okay, since we can't solve America's drug problem and we can't do any of these other things, then the best thing we can do is to sell it and use the money to fix the lights.
Right, because America has an unsolvable drug problem, and we can use that unsolvable drug problem to solve our very solvable light problem.
Right. There's a brief battle. Charlie D, since they found it, they think that they should be in charge. Then Mac and Dennis sort of team up, I guess by default, because
Frank doesn't want anything to do with it, so he kind of taps out.
Right, which leads to, I mean, there's so many guest actors on this episode that are amazing, but I think Bingo is my favorite. So Charlie takes the drugs and he's like, okay, we're going to go to Bingo. We're going to sell him the drugs and then he can do whatever he wants with it.
Yeah. They agree that they're not going to. I think Frank accuses them of being scumbags for trying to sell drugs, right?
Scumbags!
And they're just like, no, we're not going to like sell drugs. We're just going to sell this to one person and they can do whatever they want. So they're just going to do a one-off, one and done with Bingo, who is Frank's contact. So they agree, at Frank's behest, they agree not to mention Frank.
Which is so funny to me because I wanted to ask what your opinion on that was, because it seemed like Frank was saying don't mention, like he's my contact. Like, is that like a selfish thing?
Well, it's hard to tell because if you have a contact, and I guess I have these scenarios sometimes, but if you have somebody, I don't have like a drug dealer, but who can like help you with something, like who can like fix motorcycles or blah, 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 or like somebody who can get a hookup with like music gear or something, you don't want to abuse that relationship. And if someone else wants this person to do something, it's like, okay, great. I suggest that you go to them to fix your, synthesizer. But if they develop like not a good relationship, then you don't want it to reflect back on you. And I'm assuming when you deal with like drug dealers and people that are willing to skin someone alive, those relationships are even more intense.
Exotic bird dealers.
Oh, right. Yes.
Frank's like, okay, if you go to Bingo, which he doesn't want them to go to Bingo, but if you do, don't mention my name. Brilliant cut to immediately.
Hey, Bingo. Frank sent us.
It's a great quick cut. Very, very soon after, he insists that D and Charlie not look at him. And they're like, where should we look? And he's like, up. And he points to the ceiling. Bingo's great. He's got a cool little sweater, a nice gold chain, and a weird scar on his eye. Like
massive scar.
He seems tough. He seems, I don't know. He's curt, He's very to the point.
Bingo is played by a man named Greg Wiener, who was born in Philly.
Nice.
Which is why I'm assuming he's so good at that. Well, I guess I don't know what a Philly accent is because it's still a mystery to me, but he does have like an accent he has like a tough guy accent.
Yeah, for sure.
To me, that's what it sounds like.
I mean, he looks like he's standing in a storage unit.
Frank, huh? I'm gonna skin that son of a bitch and wear his face. Anyway, what's up?
Yeah, Greg Wiener, born in Philly, raised in Florida, which was a little surprising. And he's been in a bunch of stuff and still is in a bunch of stuff. But the funniest credit that I saw on his IMDb was on the soap opera All My Children. He played Thug.
I might want to look that up, that scene, because what is a scene with a thug from a soap opera look like?
Probably hilarious. Probably like something from The Room with that. You've seen The Room, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know which one I've seen, but
there's the drug dealer scene.
I don't remember it.
Okay. I'm assuming it's like that. He's probably wearing like a beanie, like really low, and like a wife beater or something like that.
Right.
baggy jeans.
Oh, you're going that. Okay. For some reason, I was thinking like thug. Like maybe it's because I just recently watched this episode, but I was thinking more like a leather jacket. Like
Oh, okay. Yeah.
not thug like a biker leather jacket, but like a fancy leather jacket, like a fashionable but awkwardly fashionable, rich-ish Italian kind of guy that someone just assumes.
I can't think of the character's name, but Dee's first boyfriend that we see that robs them, like that kind of thug. I mean, that guy looks a little thuggish.
Like if you mate him with the three tracksuit guys.
Okay.
Like if the tracksuit guys had a son that was like in the world a little bit, but like dressed a little more flamboyantly in a different, anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. Bingo's great.
So yeah, Charlie's like trying to do the like making sure you're not talking to an undercover cop thing where you don't directly say what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And we get this great nose clam thing.
Yeah, he says that they've got some delicious, tasty nose clams fresh from the sea. Bingo is supposed to know that means cocaine.
Right. I think Bingo does know, but I think he's enjoying himself.
You got a bucket of nose clams fresh from the sea. Sweet, delicious nose clams that are looking for a home, if you follow me.
No, I don't follow you. I don't know what the hell you're talking about right now.
It's not confusing, just...
And eventually, Charlie gets into this kind of rant where he makes the most obvious description. And by the end of it, he says, and it rhymes with propane. Also, I think it's really funny when he justifies, they're all like, why didn't you just say that? Like, that's too obvious now. And he says that saying what you mean directly is so tacky. And he says it's the kindergarten behavior of drug dealers.
So, of course, Bingo's interested. They throw him the coke. And the scene ends with Bingo just saying, eyes, boom. And makes them look up at the ceiling again.
Right. So Bingo's got the coke. They seal the deal
off camera. The next scene is outside of Patty's. Must be a slow day, or they're not open. I'm not really sure. The lawn chair out in front of the bar is kind of like a
doesn't seem that out of character for any normal day at Patty's.
No, it's just sort of unique. So these three guys wearing tracksuits show up and they start talking to Dennis and Mac, and again with the like vague, hard to decipher descriptions of what's happening or what they want from them.
But this one, to me, is much classier.
Oh yeah,
the way Charlie says it is funny, but the way these guys say it, and I think it gets progressively funnier.
Rumor has it that somebody that works at this bar found a certain something that belongs to us.
A certain something which may or may not have fallen off a certain truck, huh?
I guess it's similar to if someone is wearing a wire and you don't want to say anything, you can be like, well, I didn't say that. I said something may or may not have happened. If someone does or doesn't do something, then someone else might or might not do something very bad to them. It's like a way of implying a threat but not saying a threat.
Right.
By the end of it, by the end of his speech, it's just pretty ridiculous.
The characters are Johnny, played by John Mariano, James Price Jr. as Anthony, Mario Di Donato as Lefty. Johnny is the main one. He's like the older guy.
Yeah.
He is primarily a voice actor. I would like to point out that he did voices for video games such as Mafia 2, Godfather 2 game, Sopranos Road to Respect game, and he was in at least one episode of NYPD Blue and Married with Children.
Also, he voiced a character on the Animaniacs.
Okay. Yeah, he I mean, it kind of makes sense when you hear him speak. Like, he's like, I don't know, he's awesome.
He's really good. He's a very classic, wise guy, tough guy kind of voice. I was sort of, when I was reading about him, I was surprised that it was so many cartoons.
Yeah, just a voice actor mostly. Because he, I mean, he's like a handsome guy. He seems like a good actor.
Also, I was reading that, did you read about him and his references to Buster Keaton?
No.
It was very strange to me, but I think Buster Keaton's wife somehow, she thought like Buster Keaton's wife, Eleanor, was quoted as saying, "He reminded me so much of Buster, it gave me chills," which is insane because like Buster Keaton's heyday was in the 1920s. So I think he did
So
remarry in the 40s or something, but like that, his second wife must have been like pretty young for her to see this guy acting, because he didn't start until like the 80s.
Right.
It was just very strange, but that led me down a Buster Keaton rabbit hole.
Cool.
And I don't know if you're familiar with his work.
I'm not.
Buster Keaton is like, they said that he was like, he could keep a straight face through like anything, but we're talking about 1920s. There's no audio, like there's no speaking in a lot of these. These are like not the talkies, a lot of his stuff. But basically, if you see any like black and white footage of the most fucking insane stunts, it's him. Like if you see a compilation of like bonkers, like Charlie Chaplin looking things, but like him grabbing onto a moving bus and then just getting swept away, or didn't
he do the thing with the house collapsing and he's standing in the window hole?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, I have seen plenty of Buster Keaton's work, because I think like years ago I fell into a YouTube hole.
Yes,
being like, what?
And all of it's. I remember like half of these scenes, but I always thought that was just like a crazy era of stunt, but it's one guy doing all these things. Like there's one where it's like some kind of like wedding thing where him and his bride are getting from like one car to the other. They're moving cars next to each other. So the woman jumps from one car to the other, and then he attempts to, but he ends up backwards with one foot on one car and one foot on the other, and they're kind of like drifting apart a little bit.
Right.
And then and then you see a motorcycle coming the other way, and he gets picked up by the motorcycle. He just like plops onto the motorcycle and it drives away. Two moving cars and a motorcycle in opposite directions, and he just like jumps onto one. And this is again 1920s. There's only so much special effects you could use. There's a guy walking out of a door, and the two windows above it, there are guys walking, like jumping out of those not jumping, but like crawling out of those windows, and they crawl onto each other's shoulders, and then they walk across the hallway, or the alleyway, and then they walk into the doors and windows corresponding on the other side. I don't know if I'm describing this correctly, but
I'm getting a pretty vivid image.
It's just, anyway, I should stop because you should just watch the 10 minutes of Buster Keaton videos.
Did he have any like horrific injuries or anything like that?
Not
surely.
Well, only. I mean, I'm sure he got plenty busted up. Actually, oh my God, craziest thing. Apparently, Buster wasn't a name at the time, but I think Houdini somehow, like the kid like fell down when he was like super young, and somehow I don't know if Houdini said it specifically about him, but he's or if it was just a general quote, but that's called a buster, and it's someone in a movie who like it was like a stuntman or something, somebody who gets busted up. They call them a buster. And apparently his parents were like, that's a cool name. So they like, I don't know if they renamed him or if that was his like nickname was Buster, because he would just like, he fell down a flight of stairs when he was like a baby and didn't cry. He was just like, that's fine. And they were like, cool. That's what he's going to do. Anyway, sorry, what was your question?
Yeah, so John Mariano, a.k.a. Johnny, the spirit of Buster Keaton lives in him, maybe.
But which doesn't make any sense when you, like, he's primarily a cartoon, like, voice actor, video game.
Maybe she saw him do, like, a play or something when he was, like, 20 years old or something. I don't know.
I'm very confused.
That is very weird, especially when you start thinking how old Buster Keaton films are. It's like...
Oh, that was his main injury, as far as I read, was alcoholism.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic one from...
the 30s apparently were not good for him. But he did get back into, like, comedy, I think, in the 40s, and, like, came back and, I don't know, won some awards. So he pulled it off.
Nice.
Anyway, mafiosos.
James Price is the heavier set guy. He died. He was a comedian, I think. And Mario Di Donato was in apparently 2 other episodes of Always Sunny, uncredited.
Interesting.
Gang gets invincible, and Dennis and Dee's mom is dead, which I didn't go back and watch, but it seems very strange. I don't know if he's like friends with one of them.
Yeah, that one, the tryouts, the Invincible makes sense. He's probably like somewhere in there, you know.
Dennis and Dee's mom was dead. Anyways, notably, he was also in NYPD Blue, because we can't seem to shake that now that we've
opened Pandora's box. The butts just won't go back in.
So Dennis and Mac are like half drunk, which we later learned, and so like the They get very confused by this like roundabout way of speaking.
Right.
Comes out a little more clear. Johnny's just like, you either give us the drugs or you give us $25,000 that it's worth. And then there's a deadline set. Lefty says,
Friday is a day that we may not be forced to chop your limbs off and distribute them evenly amongst your friends and your family. And that's Friday.
Right, not a threat.
And then the highlight of this for me is Johnny says, much depreciated.
Yeah.
Which is fucking awesome.
Yeah, when they sort of get the point of the threat and everything, and they're like, we understand, and we will get right on that. Yeah, and I had to rewind it a couple of times to make sure I heard him say much depreciated.
And then the good day to use. Mac is doing the hand gesture. I mean, you probably know what hand gesture I'm talking about without even...
Right. He's speaking with his hands, emulating them. And the best part is I thought they were going to be really offended, because it sort of seems patronizing and like mocking.
Right. Yeah.
But they just say that in kind.
Good day to use?
Good day to use.
Huh?
Yeah. Always Sunny introduces a new ethnic stereotype, and it's Southern Italians, and they're nailing it.
I don't know. Introducing it to the show.
Right.
I was going to say, it seems like a very classic trope.
No. I'm just saying it's probably the first time that we've had the...
there wasn't a lot of diversity in Kansas growing up, was there? So at this point, do we see Charlie and Dee come back with their spoils of war?
They are thrilled.
And, Dennis is freaking out, and they're like, yeah, don't worry. Okay, we got the money. We'll just pay them off. And if we have some extra, we have some extra. No big deal. So Charlie counts out the $1, $2, $300.
Not quite enough. Charlie and Dee start bickering a little bit. Charlie's like, I asked for more money, and then Dee informs the gang how he asked for more money, and the quote is...
He said to the man he wanted many, many thousands of green people from history times.
Charlie's like mouthing along at the end of that, which is very funny.
Yeah. He does that a couple of times.
So they're fucked, basically, and they all turn to Frank, and they're,
Well, before we leave, my favorite part of that, other than the fact that anytime someone quotes Charlie as saying something silly, it's amazing, and somehow when he speaks, it's fine, but when he writes or they paraphrase him, it's broken English.
Right.
But I think Dennis freaks out or something, but Mac says, I get that. It's like one of the subtle ones, but it's such a great response because, I understand what he's saying. So I think they realized that they got screwed over by Bingo. I think they want Frank to maybe make it right, and he's, again, not into it. He wants nothing to do with it.
Don't look at me. You made this bed, you're sleeping in it.
So they decide they got to go back. They're going to try and get their money back, or the drugs back.
Right, yeah, they're going to buy the drugs back. Dennis is realizing the gravity of the situation, and he's like...
We are going to get whacked off by a bunch of scary Italian guys. Did they say they were going to whack us off? They wanted to whack us all off.
Hold on, nobody's going to get whacked off today, okay?
Do you remember the Family Guy skit where this comes up?
I haven't seen much Family Guy.
Oh, okay. There's a similar situation where somehow Peter gets into a situation with like a mafia guy. I think he like invites him into his office and he says, Peter, I need a favor for you. And Peter's just like, okay, what is it? You want me to whack a guy? You want me to off a guy? You want me to whack off a guy? Because I'll do it. I thought that was a better execution of it. So I'm curious. It'll take too long. I'm not going to look at the timeline.
Dee's like, we'll go back to Bingo. We'll get our drugs back in the story. And Frank says, if you do, don't mention my name. And again, we get the great cut.
Yep.
Frank said to tell you to sell us back our drugs.
Which Bingo is more than happy to do.
Yes, he is.
At $5,000.
Yeah, a bit of a markup.
But seems like a pretty good deal. I feel like they probably should have tried to take that deal.
Right. Knowing everything we know, it probably would have worked out a lot better, but, for the sake of hilarity.
But when they realize that that's not going to happen, they sort of say, okay, we got $300. What can we buy that we have to resell? Bingo first suggests an exotic bird. I'm curious as to what the exotic bird would have been, but we don't get there. They don't want a bird. They need something they can, resell. So he says, how about some Oxycontin? That, unfortunately, is $1,200, which they can barely come up with. So I guess that's why the $5,000 was definitely out of the question.
Right.
The original pile of drugs.
Yeah, Dee, being the voice of reason, is like, they're talking outside about it, and she's like, yeah, well, if we split, it's not a big deal. And then, of course, the gang doesn't have... Three men in their 30s don't have $800 between them, and there's...
Charlie says, what am I supposed to do? Oh, hello, bank. Do I have an account here? Also, there's weird math going on, not to get there, but like, it's $1,200 that they need. They have $300 from the drugs they sold.
Right.
So
no, that's a good point.
Dee is claiming that they can't come up with $800. She's only going to contribute $100? Unless she's claiming the $300 for herself, and then adding only $100 into that, which would make sense.
Regardless, it's a funny bit.
Right.
Back at the bar, Dee plops down the drugs, and Frank is upset that they mentioned his name again.
I told you not to involve me in that. Did you mention my name?
First thing we did. Are you going to harp on it all day?
Yeah, Frank is doing this thing where he doesn't want the gang to sell drugs because only the biggest pieces of shit sell drugs.
Right.
He doesn't want to bail them out because if he bails them out, he's going to be doing this for the rest of his life, which he doesn't bail them out in this episode, but he does end up doing it for the rest of his life as far as we know.
Right.
The seasons.
But it does seem like that's how they started their life also.
Exactly.
You know, he was always bailing them out when they were young, I'm assuming, so he's just continuing to do that.
And Mac actually has a good idea. And he's like, yeah, let's go to Frank's Country Club and we'll sell the pills there. Those people have money.
Right. It's interesting because Frank doesn't want anything to do with it. For up until this scene, he's like out. He's like washing his hands of it. But it seems, again, Frank doesn't seem like super money motivated, although he does, but he isn't. He's just in it for like the schemes, kind of.
Right.
And at this point, he checks in on and says, "Oh, how much do you need, and when do you need it by?" And he's like, "Oh, you'll never do that. You're gonna have to start turning tricks. Somebody's gonna have to prostitute." And Dee assumes he's talking about her and says that's gross, and he denies that. He's like, "No, these dudes are super rich. They can get way hotter broads than you." And then Charlie volunteers. He says, "Fine, he'll do it." And he says, "No, not even close." Mac volunteers, and he says, "No, you're too low class. These ladies will catch something from you. That's no good."
They will.
Right. Again, Mac has a subtle response. Yeah, he agrees. They will. So it's got to be Dennis, and I think that's when Frank enters the episode.
Yeah, he just wanted to do something insane. I feel like.
Exactly. He's all about getting. He only has a few years left on this planet, so he's going to get weird with it.
Yeah, exactly. You're right, because it's like no mention of him to Bingo. Don't sell drugs. I'm not going to bail you out. And then when it's like you're going to have to make your son turn into a prostitute for a week or 5 days or whatever, then it's like, oh, now I'm in. Now this is interesting. I want to help now.
And I get that.
So then we go to Frank's Country Club. He's wearing a sailor's hat?
Yeah, like a captain's hat or something.
Captain's hat? Yeah.
It seems a little weird, but also, I mean, yeah, it makes sense in, I don't know, like rich people have boats, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well, basically what I'm getting at is that the costume department really knocked it out of the park with this because whatever, like everyone's looking preppy. Charlie's wearing shorts, but Mac's pants, he's wearing like proper golf clothes.
Right. Those like weird plaid. Also, I think it's really interesting, speaking of like the costume department, or wardrobe is probably how they describe it. But anyway,
sure.
Charlie's shirt he's got the blazer or the jacket, which I think, means that he's dressed up, but he's got just like a green and white striped t-shirt underneath it, which is interesting because later we see Buster, the jockey, and Buster's uniform is white with green stripes. And they like match.
You're saying it was destined.
Yeah, destiny.
Speaking of Buster, Charlie is instantly just like, he sees a jockey walk by and he's like, holy shit, did you see that? And they're like, yeah, there's a horse track here. And he just leaves.
Yeah, he's like, okay, later.
So this is where we get the amazing Charlie and the horse plot. Charlie goes to the stable and he meets this horse and they make a connection.
Yeah, he's like hand feeding it and stroking it, and it's really comfortable with him. It's great.
And a jockey named Buster walks up.
It's a real beaut, ain't you?
Holy shit, you can talk.
What?
That is crazy. I would have figured, if anything, your voice would be like super high.
Buster is played by Robert Towers.
Oh, you mean a young/old Benjamin Button?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He was in Benjamin Button. He was in Star Trek: The Next Generation, and he played Albert Einstein on Hannah Montana.
Whoa. Maybe I should go back and rewatch Hannah Montana.
Rewatch?
Oh, yeah. I guess I've never watched it, so I can't rewatch it.
Okay. I was just checking. Anyways, Buster explains that the last stable boy had his brains kicked in by the horse. So, hey, we're looking for somebody to fill that spot. Do you mind working with horse shit?
Possibly the best scene of this episode.
It's up there.
When Buster sort of offers them the job, but says, but you gotta be comfortable with dealing with horse shit. And he literally bends down and picks up a clump of horse shit in his hand and presents it to Buster. Buster is impressed and says, typically we use the little shovel, but that works too.
They're heading out to go to the jockey office, and
he wants to meet the gang.
Yeah, Charlie's still holding the shit, and Buster's like, actually, can you leave that there?
You just leave that.
Just a really, really nice little cherry on top there at the end.
Yeah, just Charlie's comfortability with horseshit is amazing.
Mac and Dee they're in the country club, and they're coming up with their plan, like how they're gonna.
I'm gonna play the role of a high-powered executive, and you are going to be my secretary, Linda.
Ooh, no, I will be your business partner.
It reminded me of Dee and Artemis doing street theater, kind of.
Right. Yeah, this scene for me was very cringeworthy and annoying. I did not like it.
Well, I do think it's funny when. Yeah, because they're fighting each other with like the basic structure of what they're doing while they're doing it.
Yeah, there's like a weird power dynamic happening between them as to whose role in the grift should be more important. And Dee maybe is just fighting on a feministic sort of level, but neither one of them is putting the grift first.
Right. But Dee does a great. She exposes Mac for being a dumbass when she's like, so Jameson, what was he going to invest in?
Jameson is investing in new technologies.
Really? Which ones?
Lasers.
Lasers?
Yep.
That is adorable.
Lasers, Linda.
I guess Mac feels like it's gone far enough, and so he pulls out the big bag of pills and just says he wants to buy some drugs.
Right. It doesn't work.
It's very inelegant.
Yeah. And it doesn't go well. What do we got? Buster
Dennis.
and Buster. Oh, Dennis. Oh, right. Rico.
Yeah, there's a lot happening in this country club.
Yeah. So I guess Frank leaves Dennis at the bar.
Right.
And Dennis is kind of scoping the scene, and he just gets approached by this like handsome Latino dude in like a casual vibe, like blazer, and this guy just assumes that Dennis is also a male prostitute and says,
good-looking guy like you could do very well in my business.
Thanks, but I'm not really into banging old ladies.
Dennis doesn't want to bang old people, and he says, no, you don't understand. It's great. It's just living the life. These women just want companionship. They just want someone to hang out with, and they have tons of cash, and it's just shopping and fancy dinners and vacations. And Dennis is like, okay, yeah, that doesn't sound bad. That's like all the good parts of it, none of the bad parts. Right. I could get into something like that. And then, Rico's like, all right, man, well, see ya. And we see him go back to the back of house into the kitchen where he gives Frank the jacket, and Frank gives him his hairnet, and we see under it he's like wearing a wife beater. And it is pretty impressive that he looks like a very casual but like well-dressed person with the jacket on, and as soon as he takes the jacket off and puts on the hairnet, he looks like a busboy washing dishes, and it's a pretty amazing transformation.
Yeah, it's a brilliant plan by Frank. Like it's some top grade stuff. Rico is played by Matt Cedeno.
Yeah,
he was in a bunch of stuff, but like Days of Our Lives and Desperate Housewives, and he's extremely handsome Latino.
Yeah, very very handsome dude. Also, I felt like when he was speaking to Dennis, he was very convincing, but also this is exactly how people speak when they're selling something, and I don't trust them. Like, oh, it is the best. It's this. You love it. And there's just something that's like overly convincing. And I think I'm a little bit biased against attractive people.
Interesting.
Like he's so attractive and he's so adamant that I don't trust what he's saying.
Right. But we are talking about Dennis and as a greater whole, the gang who are very easy to manipulate with vanity.
Yes. And yeah, Dennis is probably particularly susceptible to this. And I mean, imagine having a handsome guy like Rico come up to you and tell you how handsome you are.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, I can't believe you're not. Oh, come on. I thought you were in the same line of work. Come on."
You'd be weak in the knees.
So yeah, so great grift. And Frank hands him $10. Apparently, it was supposed to be 20, and he says, take it or leave it.
The warthog, when he's rolling, he's rolling.
Yeah, and again, I don't think it's the $20 or $10 for Frank. It's the game.
No.
You know?
Yeah. This is why he hangs out with these people.
Yeah. That's why he's part of the gang.
Fantastic scene coming up. Charlie in like the jockey lounge. Yeah. I don't know what else to call where they are. They're in the stables, but it's like a party scene. It's midday, seems like. The jockeys are fucking partying.
They're wild.
There's like bottles of booze everywhere. There's like pills scattered on the table. They bought all of the oxy that Charlie brought.
I guess they split it up into 4 parts. Everybody had their own to sell, and the jockeys just bought all of it.
Nobody parties like a jockey.
You know what they say? Nobody parties like a jockey. I was not familiar with that expression, Buster. I didn't even know you guys could talk.
And Charlie still is expressing that he's surprised that they can talk. There's a great bit where Charlie, Buster's excited about having him in the jockey gang, and Charlie's like, well, there's some stuff I got to iron out with the mafia, and Buster's reaction is, oh, sure. Like the reaction is so fucking spot on. It's so funny. Like Buster's also been through something like this with the mafia.
Yeah. It's like you see the jockeys partying and like getting wild and the drugs and the booze and this, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
Because Buster's been involved with the mafia. So Charlie says he's got to wrap up some things with the mafia, but after that, he's really going to think about this job, cleaning up horseshit.
And this is where Charlie lets Buster know that he thinks he might have been a centaur in a previous life based on his connection with the horse in particular.
They looked into each other's eyes and he just felt something. So he's pretty sure that he was a centaur.
And Buster asks, well, I don't really know how else to do this part. Buster has a great line that I'm going to put in right here. I don't really know what else I can say about it.
So come on, you old son of a gun, and let Buster do a line off your boner.
I think both parts of it are funny. One is that he's like, well, I don't know if you were half man, half horse in your past life, but I do like you. I like your spirit, so let me do a line off your boner.
And of course, Charlie's reaction is great because it takes a little bit longer than you think. Like he waits a beat. I don't know what else he would do. I have never been in that situation, but I'm assuming I would do something similar.
Yeah, that's a weird one. It's also a bummer because it seemed like it was going so well. Charlie had like a true reaction. It's also like, he's like, it's like Charlie work, so he knows he's into it and he's good at it. But there's a magical horse involved instead of just the bar. And then he's got these like wild friends. It seems great.
Every aspect of Charlie's C plot, or whatever you want to call it, every aspect has been successful.
Yeah.
He met a horse he loves. He met Buster, who is cool. They're friends. He sold all the drugs. He's gonna be doing Charlie work in a situation that's maybe a little more like fun.
And it seems like he would be way more respected,
Right.
But
so it's just, it just crossed the line.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to let Buster do a line off his boner, so he's out.
And then we cut to Dennis, like straight to work. I don't know how much time passed. It doesn't seem like much time, but he's already got a lady at the table with him, and he orders her a daiquiri. And Charlie just makes a barnstorming style entrance, is completely oblivious to what's going on.
Right.
Grabs a dinner roll and he's like, hey, did you sell any of your pills? Like just full volume.
Right.
Nothing like incognito about it.
No subtlety.
Just like, did you sell any of your pills? Like I sold all of mine. Do you know lawn jockeys are crazy? And then Dennis is like, hey, I'm trying to do something here. Like, okay, Charlie.
Charlie, you're kind of cramping my style. I'm trying to drum up a little business here. You know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying?
Dude, I think I was a centaur in my past life. It totally occurred to me.
What makes you think you were half man, half horse? Charlie.
Dennis's pimp, Frank, comes in and he's like, Charlie, we got to go. And then Dennis is claiming that yep, get this guy out of here. He smells like cheese. Actually, it's not cheese. It's horseshit, which is great because he's eating like a dinner roll.
Right.
He's like,
he's like, yeah, it's not the cheese. I have the horseshit on my hands. He's like ripping a roll apart and eating it.
Yeah, and Dennis is getting like increasingly frustrated, and he's just like, you know what, Frank, you don't smell much better, which I thought was a pretty funny thing.
Right.
And a gigantic security guard comes up and says that, are you the Reynolds party? We had to escort your friends off the property. They got kicked out. Bodyguard played by Big Will Harris, who is a bodybuilder.
Nice.
Unsurprisingly.
Yeah, this scene to me was interesting on two levels. One, I relate to Charlie a lot in this scene in particular because I feel like I'm very often a person who will like show up at someone else's table and start eating table bread.
I saw you in Charlie in this scene.
I'm definitely, I think I would have a little more tact and understand what was going on, but I also might push it even if I knew, because Charlie might know that he's interrupting and not care.
Yeah, there's a little trolling in there.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. So I could definitely see that. The other thing that I noticed was that this, to me, I thought it was going to be the classic Always Sunny cutaway when they would cut back to the older woman that Dennis was on a date with, and she would be gone.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's so much back and forth and awkwardness, and it's like, obviously Charlie blew up the spot like the second he sat down and said, like, did you sell your pills? Right. I sold my pills. I was a centaur. I was holding horseshit. It's like, it gets worse and worse. It's so obvious that like they're having the inappropriate conversation and Dennis is like, I'm with someone. Yeah. But they didn't do it.
Yeah, that's a missed opportunity. That's a very astute observation.
Yeah, I feel like they could have, but oh well.
They didn't give her any lines or anything, and I think she's only in that one shot where he's ordering the daiquiri.
They do cut back to her specifically.
Oh, okay.
At one point, because at some point where it's like the most ridiculous, they cut back to her for a reaction. But
I see. Okay,
it could have been an empty chair.
Yeah, that would because they've already done that.
Yeah, they've established that as a thing.
Yeah. So Dee and Mac got kicked out for selling pills, so they also confiscated their drugs. They're standing by Dennis's car. And this is where Mac is being accused of being too bossy.
I think Charlie assumes what happened.
Bossy?
He's like, is that what happened? You guys got kicked out because he was bossy? Right. So they realize that Mac is not pulling his weight. He's just ruining everything. So they sort of all agree to get in the car, and they're kind of like, I think Charlie actually pushes him out when he tries to get in.
Right.
What does Dennis say? Dennis has he puts on his really weird high voice.
We cannot have you around us screwing things up.
It's the same voice. What I was going to say is that this is the same dynamic as when Mac and Dennis break up, because it's like, Mac is being too bossy and controlling and stuff like that. That similar dynamic, but it's the same voice Dennis uses when he says,
"I'm not allowed to eat it with the skin. I'm not allowed."
Oh my God! All right, if you just shut up.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But this one, so earlier, Mac and Dee's scene to me was not that funny, but cringeworthy. I didn't like it. But this one is Dennis's delivery is funny, but also cringy and annoying. So there's some redeeming value, but it's very bizarre.
Right. So they've established that Dennis is not a prostitute, but he's a handsome companion. Mac is being bossy. Mac wants to take the money and buy Coke, and they're like, no, like, you're being too bossy. You're not involved in this anymore.
You're out.
They literally leave him at the country club, which is apparently 40 miles outside of Philadelphia.
Right. And then again, Dee has her line about like, use your, the same way every American travels on their own 2 feet. Some meh.
Very weird line. Yeah.
I think that was like maybe the improv thing when it doesn't fully hit and they're like, that was the best one. Might as well.
Yeah. The whole them heckling Mac seemed to be pretty improv. Yeah. And then we have a great cut into, it looks like a school or something.
Yeah, I think it's like a really old, like, I forget what it is, but like Eagles Hall, like the Philadelphia, like 1800s version of Elks Lodge, Eagles Hall, or whatever.
or like a rec center vibe kind of. Anyways, it's funny because first of all, the mafia guys are doing the exact same thing that that Mac and Dennis were doing when they showed up.
Right.
And the second funny thing about it is that Mac stole a golf cart and he drove it all the way to Philly, and he.
Stop it already! I got it. It's all right. Come on. Put the parking brake on.
His hair's all fucked up because he's been in a golf cart for 40 miles.
Yeah, I don't know how long that would take.
And there's a wonderful debate over double negatives here. Mac is coming to terms with being kicked out of the gang's plan. So the smartest thing in his eyes is to join the other side of this dispute and become a mafioso.
Yeah, he wants to be part of their crew.
I may or may not have had nothing to do with it. And then there's a funny back and forth
You just said you did have something to do with it. I think I said I did have absolutely nothing to do with it.
Right, and I think Mac is right.
He is right.
Yeah, I think he's right. But the other guys are like, wait, you didn't,
I don't really blame them for asking for clarification in this scenario.
Right. So basically, he's trying to come over and he's using their terminology to try and say that he had nothing to do with it and he wants to join their gang. They get confused, but John, I don't know what his character's name is. Oh, his character's name is Johnny.
Johnny. Yeah. Of course it is.
So Johnny says, okay, you can, we'll see about that, but first you got to prove your loyalty. And he says, you got to clean the toilets. Mac is a little taken aback by, but he does admit that he can clean a mean toilet because his friend Charlie taught him, and he's great. He's like, you'll meet him later.
I would like to just clarify one thing. He doesn't say the toilets. He wants him to clean the bathrooms.
Oh, right. The bathrooms.
And then Mac has him, I forget how it comes up, but he makes him repeat it. And he says bathrooms again.
Right.
And it's very funny to me. I don't know why I get...
It's funny because it's a funny accent. That's why it's
the
funny,
way the gangsters talk is so funny to me.
Yeah.
I love it. Much depreciated, bathrooms.
Much depreciated.
And Mac is like, thank you. He's so grateful, and then he just goes to get to work. The other two gangsters are like what? He's going to be part of our gang? And he's like, no. He's going to be my little bitch boy. Which is also funny to me. Till Friday, and then he's going to...
I want to whack him off here regardless.
Evil laughter, and part 1 is completed.
Yeah, it's a cliffhanger. Not really.
I will hold my grade until the end of part 2, but I'm going to give you a hint. It's going to be an A+.
It's so interesting because I like this episode, but there are a couple of parts where I'm not fully. I don't know if I think I enjoyed this episode a lot. But I don't know if I laughed as much as I do on most of the other episodes.
I think a lot of this, for me, has to do with the mafia guys. And I think that
they are great.
Very funny because this is also, I think The Sopranos would have just been concluded at this point. 2007. Something like that. So this is fresh in everyone's mind, and they're just doing such a dumb version of it.
Right.
That it's very funny to me.
Yeah.
And I love Bingo also. And
yeah, Bingo is great.
Would love to see more of Bingo, but I understand.
Maybe season 17.
What?
Very effective.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of It's Always Stockholm in Los Angeles.
Do you think you're going to die sooner because you're left-handed?
No, because I'm right-handed.
Because you're partially left-handed?
I might live forever.
Whoa.
The Golden God!
Nailed it. Good stuff. All right, cool.
I'm gonna work on the soundboard. It's gonna be an integral part. Please follow us on social media: Twitter @AlwaysStockholm, Instagram @always_Stockholm.
And wherever you get your podcast, feel free to review, subscribe, do whatever it does that makes us feel and look cool towards other people.
Brought to you by the Natty and New Network.